everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Kelly. Today, my guest is Brian Faro. He is Paradise Realty's managing broker out in Englewood, Florida. Brian, welcome. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So, I've been in the area since I was 4 years old. Family moved down from New Jersey to Englewood. So I got to grow up there, which is a small town. It's growing a little bit, but it's still, to a lot of people, it's a small town. I just had the fortunate opportunity to grow up and just experience outdoors. It's pretty much all you really had to do down there. Moved away to Orlando for about 2 years after high school, but it didn't take long for me to realize Englewood's where I wanted to be.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Came back and decided this is where I wanted to plant my roots.
And Englewood too, we were talking before, that's a community that people kind of overlook when they're looking to move to Florida. And that's why I wanted to have you on there, because there's Venice, and then Venice leads into Englewood. And tell us about that community, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so it's kind of off the beaten path, right? So everyone's used to US 41, which kind of, it skips it.
Yes.
And I think actually if you talk to people history, they were going to actually make it go through Englewood at one point, and then they got down to that certain area and they went around through that Northport, which I don't even know if that existed at that point. But they basically ended up skipping Englewood. Probably not a big deal for a lot of people because we've always loved that we weren't really noticed. But I think that secret's kind of out. People are noticing it now. And, I actually, previous to real estate, I managed Walgreens stores for about 10 years. And I can give you one little tidbit from that really makes you realize how far off the beaten path we are. We had these big districts, and so we'd have tech support that would, travel into the stores. They all hated coming to Englewood because of how long it would take them to get off the interstate, get to Englewood, do a 5-minute job, and go back to the interstate. They hated it. So they would tell us that all the time. We don't like when you call us. So if they could, troubleshoot anything over the phone, they were thrilled.
That's what they wanted
to do. I hate to throw a word hate in there, right?
Right.
But it just makes you understand we're just tucked off enough that people just kind of skip over it. Beautiful area though. The beaches, the wildlife, the nature. We don't get a lot of big corporate type,
No, you don't.
businesses. We've had a Walmart forever, but I think everyone gets one of those. But other than that, you see just a lot of mom and pop type restaurants, some amazing food, and really, if it's like I said, anything outdoors, that's what you're going to be looking to do.
Speaking of restaurants, Minnesota Key is where the Englewood Beach is.
Right.
And there's a restaurant there called the Lock and Key, and I believe they have a burger or a meal or something named after you.
They did. So it's temporary. Every year we do a thing with the chamber called Let's Eat Englewood, and it's all these restaurants participate. And when I just termed out of the board of the chamber, but I was on there for about 7 years. And one of the ideas that we came up with then was that we should give the opportunity for a person to sponsor a menu item, and they get a little bit of publicity out of it, but they get to pair up with the restaurant and then have a lot of fun with it. So I think we've done 3 now where we do a unique burger, and we've had shrimp on top of it, lobster, bacon wrapped, because you wrap anything in bacon and I'm in. So we had some really cool stuff that we've done with that. But yeah, it's a great place. They're most well known for their pull tabs.
Okay,
if you're familiar
yes,
with
I've
that.
seen
so
that.
Your opportunity to win a 50-cent drink. Any drink could be 50 cents, or it could be full price. So so that's a great little place to go check out.
That is. That's
right.
one of my go-tos when I'm on Minnesota Key.
Right.
And Brian, in your real estate world, some of the things that you said you were working on are like private property rights and things like that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I actually serve as the current president for the Englewood Area Board of Realtors.
Correct.
So, being in leadership and being involved with our local realtor associations very important to me. But now at this level, I get involved a lot at the state level as well.
Yes.
And then even a little bit in the national. So on a state level, there are a ton of things that the Realtor organization is doing, to help individuals with their private property rights. It's not just to protect us and the people in our industry. It's to protect the people that have anything to do with private property rights, whether it be commercial, rental, just vacant land, foreign owners. There's a lot of things happening every day. So we have a thing called the Realtor Political Action Committee.
Yes.
And also known as RPAC.
Yes.
And a lot of us, including myself, we all contribute to that. And basically what that does is that employs people who sit up in Tallahassee and review every single bill that goes through. I mean, fine tooth comb, make sure that if it's going to have any impact on the real estate industry, negative or positive, that they get involved with it to see if they can help either influence it, or sometimes things need to be shut down. I don't have time for that. A lot of us don't, right? I can't go to Tallahassee and review every bill.
No.
So I rely on these people, and I help fund them along with many others in our organization that help fund them so that they can do that for us. And then they bring us back everything to say, here's what we're supporting, here's what we'd like you to support, and here's the things that we stopped from happening that maybe we're going to have a negative impact. There's some business rent tax things that just took place that are really going to help people with business rent tax to be able to just make things more affordable for people, so that we can have more businesses choose Florida for their location. So I could go on and on. That I know you got a cool guest speaker coming in, I think next week, to talk about hometown heroes.
Yes, I do.
That's huge. I won't go too far into that because you'll learn a lot about that next week.
Yeah.
But that's another one where Florida Realtors has spent a lot of time and money investing in making sure that continues on. They just refunded it again, so there's more funds in it. So just some really cool things like that. There's a lot of boring stuff too, but the boring things are also very important, and we need people like that they take it serious.
Yes.
And they don't overlook anything, and they give us the opportunity to better understand it so that we can help our consumers better understand it.
Exactly, because affordable housing is very important to everyone in our community. We have a huge resort coming into Punta Gorda called Sunseekers, and that's going to be bringing in a lot more people to work in this area, and we need to make sure that they have affordable housing.
Right.
And people like you, the Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Northport, and DeSoto Board of Realtors, I think Danny Nix is over there, they're all involved in those things. And I know that we call it our PAC, and something that I want to stress is that it is not Republican or Democrat, it is Realtor. It is for the best things for our communities, and it is an excellent organization.
Absolutely. And one of the points to bring up to that with the affordable housing is the terminology often gets confused. There's a lot of misperception there. So someone hears the word affordable or workforce, and they immediately think it's like free housing, right? Like we're building something so that anybody who doesn't want to work and wants a free place to live can come here. It's not that at all.
No.
This is so that someone can work at Sunseeker Resort or work at Burger King or McDonald's or Walmart or wherever, even like a little mom and pop coffee shop, and they can afford to live here, right? Because you're not going to drive 3 hours to go make $15 to $20 an hour.
No, you're not.
If you can't do that in your backyard, then why would you even try to live here or work there, let's just say.
Exactly.
So that's a big thing I think that we're trying to push, is just people have a better understanding that when you hear the word workforce or affordable, that it's just geared towards someone only maybe having to spend 30% of their income or less on rent, as opposed to 60% of their income on rent.
Correct.
Which unfortunately a lot of people are doing right now, and it's putting them in really tough situations. And they might be keeping the roof over their head, but God forbid they get a flat tire or some type of unexpected life event, they can't afford that.
Exactly.
And so we want to try to help make it just so that they can afford to be here, and the community can then flourish, right? Those businesses can stay here because they have employees. So it's really important for people, to understand that and help be an advocate for that.
Very, very important. And you mentioned, the percentage of your income that would go towards your housing. And this is so important, especially in my world, because when I have a client come to me and they want to get pre-approved for a home, we have to keep them within a certain debt to income ratio. And it's generally 50% is the highest amount, because people, especially first-time home buyers, they don't realize you're going to get into that home and you do have other things that you have to pay for besides your mortgage, your homeowner's insurance, and your property taxes. You have a car payment. You have kids in school. Kids cost a lot of money. We all know that.
Absolutely.
And then, what if something happens to that property and you need to put a roof on, or you need to replace the AC? It's so important that consumers realize this when they are looking into purchasing a home. Not trying to discourage anybody at all, because home ownership can be the best thing that ever happened to you. But there's so many factors that come into play with that. So thank you for bringing that up, Brian.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate
and
that.
it sets up long-term wealth for your family as well.
Exactly.
Like you said, there could be unexpected things in there, but if you plan it appropriately, you know, and try to keep everything budgeted appropriately, know that you need to kind of set some money aside to be saving up for certain things like that, just like you would with your car. You know the tires are going to go bald eventually. You know your oil's got to be changed, and it's not tomorrow, but in a month or 2 months or 3, you'll hopefully have accrued enough savings to be able to take care of that.
Exactly. Talking about budgeting, and I know we're getting way off topic here, but something my mom always said is when you get your car paid off, you still make that car payment to yourself. So you have the money set aside in your bank account so that when you go to buy the next car, you've got money towards it. So.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
That's
we digress.
Advice.
So talk about, you were saying something about the community give backs out in Englewood, the schools out there.
Right.
You have 3 daughters.
Yep.
And they're in the schools out there. So for families looking to come to the Englewood area, give us some perspective.
I mean, yeah, it's a very giving community, no matter what's happening, and it's been like that forever. Even when I was a kid, I was injured at one point when I was in middle school, and it was like my parents, we didn't have health insurance then, and we had just missed the cutoff for there was health insurance that you used to be able to get at a good rate through the school, but we like just missed that. And the community came together and did fundraising to help offset medical bills. And so we see that all the time when the community needs to step up, whether it's for an individual or organization or someone who's lost a loved one. I mean, they step up, and sometimes they go way above and beyond, a lot of times, way above and beyond what you'd ever think a community would do. So it's a very giving community. We've got great resources in the area for, not just families, but really all ages. And all income levels, because we do have a lot of people that are on like fixed incomes, right? They retire there. So they're waiting, till the first of every month to get that next check. And so there's a lot of great resources in the area. There's free medical clinics for people without insurance. There's, food pantries everywhere. Even we have coffee shops on Dearborn that have like a whole shelf of free food.
Oh, that's
and people bring
cool.
you can bring in anything you want, and you can take anything you want. So you go in there and you'll see just, canned goods and all kinds of different, instant consumables type meals or snacks that people can get. And it's just, like I said, it's what the community does. It's one of those communities where if you get out the word of a need, you'll get overwhelmed with the responses. And that's one of the things I think I really love about it, is that you can go just about anywhere, and if you're pretty active, you're going to see people and we kind of talked a little bit before we got started. Florida's one of those places where you end up finding, someone that you're like, wow. Actually, I met someone, I forgot to tell you both this earlier. I met someone that actually lived in the house next door to us in New Jersey.
Oh my gosh.
His wife works for us, and it was like 2 years off from the years that right after we left, that he lived in the house next door.
Oh my gosh.
So, but we kind of are that, I don't know what the best word is, but we're kind of like the collection state, right? We collect everybody from all over the world.
We do.
Which makes it really unique and very diverse, right? Like you've got so many different backgrounds, and I think that's what also helps with the giving aspect, is people know, what worked in other areas, what didn't work, and they bring that here and they try to see what would work or wouldn't work here. So we always get a lot of really good advice from people, suggestions, and this community's just grown to be just so amazing, and it continues to amaze me how much more amazing we can be. I know I use that word a lot, but it's true.
Florida is a great state. Now, out in the Englewood area, you have different communities. You've got Lemon Bay, and what's the other one? Placidia?
We got Placida. Rotunda. So that's one of the unique things, is that someone lives in the area, they call it Englewood, right? I live in Englewood is what they usually would start with saying. And a lot of people say, well, where's that? And you're like, well, it's close to Sarasota. And then sometimes you have to go as far as Tampa to say, okay, well, we're south of Tampa.
Right.
But for many, when they say Englewood, they actually live in Rotunda, or they live in South Gulf Cove, which is actually a Port Charlotte address, right? Or Gulf Cove, or Gardens of Gulf Cove, or like you said, Placida, or some people refer to it as Cape Hayes.
Okay.
So we have a lot of these different areas that are all really compiled of the Englewood area. We all those areas use the same schools, right? The same high school, the same middle school, a lot of the same community services. And so it makes it a little bit more unique that we've got people that are in these various communities, but we all kind of come together under the same umbrella of Englewood. So, which I think makes it really unique.
And Englewood's unique too, because correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but I think part of it's in Charlotte County and part of it's in Sarasota County.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, we have one of our zip codes in Englewood that's actually split by the two, and the majority of that zip code lands in Sarasota County, but a good chunk of it lands in Charlotte County. So, when you're kind of off to the edge of a county, and both counties are great, but you tend to get forgotten about a little bit sometimes on certain things. Like Englewood has River Road is kind of our evacuation route. I mean, it's a 2-lane road that I've known for 25, 30 plus years and longer. Everyone's talked about how the need for it to be elevated and widened for emergency evacuation. Well, all this development's happened, and that hasn't happened. They're doing part of it right now, but not really that chunk that gets an Englewood person out to the interstate and out of the area in the case of an emergency. So you get it forgotten a little bit, but that's why we've got great voices in the area, like the Englewood Area Board of Realtors, like the Englewood Area Chamber of Commerce, that we kind of step up and help be the voice for the community. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Brian, that's all that I really have for you today. Anything else you want to mention?
No, I mean, I think the big thing and something we talked about yesterday is just kind of that community involvement aspect. I know I touched on a little bit about how giving Englewood is, but I think it's important for individuals, regardless of what they're in, whether they're retired or regardless of what industry they're in or what stage of life they're in, that they find some type of way to give back. They're without ever looking for like an immediate benefit, right? Like you should never say like, I want to join Rotary because I want to get more business. I want to join Rotary because I want to do good for the community. Naturally, that would create more business for me no matter what industry I'm in. I mean, I can relate, community giving to any industry out there, right? Even we talk about like tourism, and not everybody loves it, right? Because they're like, oh, these people are coming and taking up our beach. If you're a plumber, if you're an electrician, I mean, all that tourism is more dollars back towards your industry.
It is.
Right?
Yes, it is.
I think it's so important that we find ways as individuals to give back because, if we all do a little bit, it obviously contributes quite a bit. So I mentioned yesterday, if anyone's ever looking for an opportunity to give back, I get that call a lot. I'm always more than happy to take a phone call and offer some advice if someone wants to become a big brother, big sister, anything like that. I can share my phone number. It's 941-270-2220. Feel free to call or text me anytime. It's not a big deal. I get some really crazy questions sometimes, but I'm okay with that. Like if I don't know the answer, I want to know the answer and I'll figure it out.
Right. So. Well, you come to mind when I think of the Englewood area and with being involved in the Board of Realtors out there, the Rotary, everything else, you're kind of like, when I need something or I have a question out in that area, I think of Brian. I got to call Brian.
Yeah, just call. Yep. Yeah, if we can help each other out, I mean, why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I admire about you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
And that's it for this time, folks. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Brian. And like he said, tune in the next time because I have information about the Hometown Heroes coming.